Here's how I built a foldable router table that's packed with features, literally. This router table has fold-out legs, a fully adjustable fence, a mitre gauge, a box joint jig, and a brace that also doubles as a router bit holder, all stored neatly inside this briefcase body. It took some careful planning, but I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I hope you find it useful. Now, there are plans available in the description on my website. I ripped down all four sides to the dimensions that I wanted. Using some offcuts of Renew, I ripped them down for the perimeter for the trim. Quite important to be accurate with the mitres here, just to make sure it all lines up nicely. It's pretty easy enough just to plane down and sand down the tops of these trims so it's flush with the plywood. Now it's time for the plywood box. It's better just to make this a fraction smaller than the dimensions of the top, just so it gives you that little bit of tolerance to flush trim the edges. Now I routed a channel in all four of these sides. This is for the lid that will slide in and out, which you'll see soon. There is a link above to this 3-in-1 jointing jig. I do like to use it because I can cut all my pieces down to the exact size and then just put them flat on the table, and it will just mitre them and it won't change the size or length. You may do your mitres differently, but this is just the way I've been doing them recently, and it seems to be working really well. So for the glue up, I just use some masking tape just to keep them all together, and then just use a straight edge just to keep them all in line, and then folded them all consecutively and glued the last one. Then I used the strap clamp just to hold a little bit of tension for that glue to go off. Now I do think the mitres turned out quite well. So I'm just going to rip some plywood for the legs here, for the fold out legs. I'll basically glue them together. You can use some double-sided tape, but I just use some masking tape and some CA glue. This way I can cut them together and they're both exact. There's an idea what it looks like so far. So I'm just going to glue the box to the top. Now I'm just making a start on the fence. I'm just using these corner clamps just to keep it square while that glue goes off. I made the fence much wider, both sides, than I needed. I glued some triangular braces, although I did actually take these out and change them, as you'll see later. I had a piece of scrap MDF lying around, so using the table saw I took off a couple of mil of the edges just so I can use it to slide into my channel. It saved me buying a new piece. So I knew I had to take out a little bit more depth to allow the T-track to fit in, and of course the trim on the ends needed routing out anyway. So I have to cut out this back piece to allow the sliding door to fit inside. So this is how I've done it. So this tiny little notch is the reason why I couldn't cut this out before I glued the box together. I coated the entire piece with beeswax, but it also really helped with the lubrication to slide in and out. I marked out for all the hinges for the leg that sits at the bottom there. I chiseled out what I can and then I used a router. So the second leg is different because it's going to have to sit slightly higher, which is why I use a scrap piece which is the same thickness and allowed the hinges to pivot off that. So now I can fold the first leg completely flat, and same with the second one, without the first leg obstructing it in any way. So I marked out exactly where my template will go, and using some scrap pieces, I glued them around the perimeter. Using the same method, I do the same with the T-tracks that will be used for the fence. There we go, they fit real nice. I had a hole saw that was just slightly bigger than my base plate, which was perfect. I routed out most of the material in the center and then just used a chisel just to chisel that all out. It took a little bit of persuasion, but I managed to get the plate in nicely. Using the table saw, I cut down my fence to exactly the dimensions I wanted. I do end up doing this again because, like I say, I do change those triangular braces. I make a little box for the dust extraction. I make two little channels to allow the T-bolts to have a bit of movement. So I decided to make an adjustable mitre gauge rather than your standard 90-degree mitre gauge that I often see on these types of route tables. Now for the handle, I used the same material that I used for the trim around the tabletop. I glued a threaded bolt in the centre. Using the table saw, I cut down that piece and cut down the corners at a 45-degree angle, ready to sand it into a smooth round finish. Now if I just cut off the head of that bolt, I now have a threaded bar. So now everything's made, this is how quickly it all pieces together. And you'll see how I adapt this into making it work with the box joint jig as well. It actually turned out rather well. I drilled 2 holes on each side of the box frame that go straight through the frame and straight through the legs. I had 4 threaded inserts only on the holes that landed through the legs. Now I can use a screw bolt which goes through all 4 of these holes and keeps the legs rigid and firm. I added 2 more threaded inserts to the base of these legs. Now just a few finishing touches before I get onto the box joint jig. Now this old bag with a leather handle came in real handy. So I burnt some holes in each side of it. I've drilled out some holes in the frame. Then bolted the handle nice and tight. Now I knew these bolts would be exposed on the inside, so this was my quick solution. I'll quickly demonstrate setting this all up. Now in real time it honestly only takes about 2 minutes. And just a quick demonstration of the router table working. Using the same fixings and some parts of the Mitre Gauge, you can then attach it to the box joint jig. This just saves on extra pieces. So first I made my first cut, then I flipped it round, used a 10mm spacer and made my second cut. I took an old 10mm drill bit, cut the end off and decided to use that for my spacer. I clamped 2 pieces of scrap wood just to make sure that that was sitting square and plumb. The good thing about this is that you can just take that piece off and you can create a whole new one just from a very small scrap piece of wood. It takes about 5 minutes. So if you want to make larger fingers or smaller fingers or whatever, you can just make another one of those pieces and just switch it out. Everything has its place and there's something really satisfying about packing it all away. It just feels really organised. Full detailed plans are available on my website. There's a link in the description. Don't forget to hit like and please let me know in the comments below what you think of this build.